Buongiorno. Si accomodi. Working time regulation according the EU law, the Koch case before the European Court of Justice. Professor Patrizia Vigni.
Thank you very much. Mr. Shaikh has written a thesis on the recognition of the right of having some special rights for workers with respect to working time, and the way in which these issues, and so it analyzed the way in which the European Union regulates this issue, in particular in the specific directive on this subject matter. And this thesis focuses on the fact that working time is a field in which the European Union recognizes some fundamental rights of workers, but we could also say of individuals, if we consider that these rights are also envisaged in the EU Charter on Fundamental Rights. And this recognition has been also endorsed by the European Court of Justice in the Koch case that Mr. Shaikh has analyzed in his thesis. So I would give the floor to Mr. Shaikh in order to describe how the Working Time Directive provides for specific rights of workers, has fundamental rights, and then to give us a look at the Koch case and the way in which the Koch case has interpreted, or better to say, the European Court of Justice has interpreted the some rights that are envisaged in the EU directive. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Today my topic is working time regulations according to EU law. The Koch case before the European Court of Justice. And let's get into the introduction of the topic. The following study concerns about EU working regulatory framework, which is mainly focused on the working hours are based on 5 active working days with 2 common leave dates. And also women also get maternity leave facility for maternity purposes. And
Yeah, closer to the microphone.
yeah. And it also concentrates on women also gets maternity leaves, and also workers get additional facilities with the confirmed annual leave, paid leaves, and sick leaves also. And also special attention is paid to directive, working time directive, and also analyze Koch case, how the directive is interpreted by the European Court of Justice. The aims of the research here to describe the context of EU working time regulatory framework and to analyze significant impacts of the working time regulation in the EU, European Union, and also to underline main issue emerging from the EU legislation, and also to identify which issues still remain unsolved. Coming to the regulation of working time in the EU law, European Union law, which is adapted in 1993. And it also outlines that administrative criteria for retirement and annual leave and the night work restrictions. The fundamental attributes are 48 hours of work, each week focusing on health and safety, and also address the scarcity of women in managerial and broadened working hours. These working hours, bringing down the number of working hours worked each week will incredibly support women's possibilities of enhancing their situation in workplace, like administration, managerial positions and administrative positions. And also due to these reduced working hours, employers and employees also face some monetary issues. And also in this working time directive, we can look into the CMAP and the Jaeger case, also positively concerned regarding of the fact of the doctor's working time, and has a gigantic monetary and authoritative repercussions for the EU health area. And coming to the some fundamental rights of the workers, every people who lived in the EU have no complex situation to choose their occupation according to their lifestyle. And every citizen in the EU member states has a right to seek employment in any member states also. And also nationals of third parties also have some legal authorization to work in the EU equivalent to the EU member states. When coming to the court case, which was brought in front of the court in August 2017 by a full-time temporary worker, his name DS, and his employer for the compensation of overtime. It was initially dismissed by the court, but after it revised as per law and appealed again, and it was reviewed and analyzed by the court. And the court case was developed for the improvement of workers' healthness as well as protection sterility of workers. It also involves how workers are poorly compensated as well as social protection for workers. The study tries to illustrate current guidelines or working regulation in the EU critically. And coming to the facts of the case, DS versus Coke. DS is an employee and Coke is an employer. It is regarding to calculation of working hours and how to compensate overtime pay and the supplement of the overtime. And worker completed, basically worker, in that particular case, the worker completed 121.75 hours in 30 days. The contract between employer and employee is like, which is entitled to regulation according to MTV regulations. And he took paid annual leaves corresponding to 84.7 hours. Basically, according to German law, the threshold was 184 working hours for 23 working days. Basically, the employee claim was for 25% of supplement for remaining 22.45 hours. And also paid annual leaves to be maintained that the minimum duration of the paid annual leave must not be replaced by the allowance in the leave except where the employment relationship terminated. In the view of the parties, both parties were entitled to contract signed with mutual agreement, which was made according to the regulation of MTV. And also consideration of overtime is subjective and paid according to the working time directive. An employee could get a supplement for overtime only after reaching the threshold of, as per the view of the defendant, the employee could get a supplement for overtime only after reaching the threshold limit.
Sorry, Mr. Schick. Can we focus on the conclusions of the European Court of Justice in order to understand how this case is relevant for the working time directive interpretation?
The European Court of Justice gives some judgments according to this case. That the request has been made in proceedings between DS and Coke concerning that taking into account of days of paid annual leave in the calculation of number of hours worked, giving rise to an entitlement to overtime pay. And also, working time regulation of EU indicates that employees should reach a threshold in order to get paid for overtime with respect to annual paid leaves. And also, according to implications of EU Working Time Directive, the contract is obligated to enhance the working environment and consideration from the side of potentially eligible workers. Uh, when we come to calculation of basic working time, when we calculate the basic working time, previous working leave history and active working history are also taken into consideration. The total number of paid annual leave days has been remarkably taken into account by visualizing the overall working hours of previous work. And also 24 hours rest must be provided to all employees for every 7 days. And for 48 hours rest must be.
Okay, so what are your conclusions?
In the conclusion, the working time directive has helped to modify the working facilities for better work delivery. And also practical contribution towards infrastructure and creating social work dimension within the internal domestic market. And also employees are entitled to get contracts within the necessary working policies. And also average working hours act as a resource to create a certain range of amendments in the working area while enjoying better working facilities.
Okay, thank you very much.
Any question?
May you explain the input of the state and the contract, the necessary working?
When we made contact between employer and employee, we have to make sure that every employee has to work minimum working hours, which is entitled to working time directive as per working time directive, minimum working hours in week. That is.
Yeah, because actually this case also involved a collective contract and a collective agreement between that of a specific employees organization and labor organization. And so there was even, the European Court of Justice affirmed that also the state labor collective agreement should be interpreted according to the EU directives and in particular these fundamental rights of annual leave.
Okay, thank you. We will call you in a few minutes.
Thank you.
Yes, just press, not the microphone, just press. Okay.
We will use this button. Okay?
Thank you.
Non era chiaro che doveva tornare, sì. Se n'è andato per sempre?
Forse non lo sa che deve ritornare.
Ma ha capito che deve ritornare?
Sì, ora voglio le riapro.
Ah, ok.
Per la nostra privacy. Ma insomma,
No. Sì, sì, sì. Mi si chiama Ahmed Shaikh. Sì, sì, ora l'avevo spenti tutti, ora li abbiamo accesi. Oh, l'ho acceso adesso, in questo momento. Mr. Amer Shaikh, given the results of your academic career and the presentation of your thesis, this commission has approved your degree examination with a score of 80 out of 110. Therefore, by the powers conferred in us by the rector of this university, we proclaim you, in the name of law, Dottore Magistrale in Management e Governance. Congratulations. Bye bye. Ha perso il treno, no? Pensavo avesse perso. Tutta scema, ma ogni tanto. Che ci dobbiamo fare? Buongiorno. Buongiorno. Welcome to Gino Episcopo. The liberalization of railway passenger market. Please, Professor De Francesco.
Presents this thesis in which he has analyzes the liberalization of the railway market in Italy and the consequences it has had on competition, on fares, and so I give the word to him in order to present concisely as well as exhaustively the results of his work.
Yes, thank you, Professor. So, in the beginning of the 20th century, Italy decided to nationalize the national railways, and this decision was due to two main reasons: related to the nature of the service, and the second related to the nature of the industry. So related to the nature of the service because it's considered a public utility. And so the state decided to nationalize in order to grant the universality, the affordability, the quality, the continuity in the provision of the service. While the second reason related to the nature of the industry because it was considered a natural monopoly. A natural monopoly condition occurs when the cost of the industry is at its minimum level possible if only one firm operates into the market. Moreover, according to economists, if compared to a situation of competition, we found an inefficiency, which is called in jargon a deadweight loss, so a loss in the social welfare. In order to increase the efficiency of the industry as a whole, a debate among economists arose and they found finally a solution. So they thought they could introduce competition in one of the segments by dividing the public utility industry, not only railways, but public utility in general, into segments. An upstream segment related to the management of the infrastructure, which really constituted a natural monopoly, and a downstream segment related to the supply of the passenger transportation service. Within this downstream segment, they could introduce competition. Now, if they choose a vertical integrated structure, we could we could keep the efficiency related to a vertical integrated structure, so in terms of economies of scope and in terms of efficiency in general, while on the other hand, they could have allowed allowing the upstream monopolies into the downstream market to sabotage through the control of the essential facility, the free entry and the competition in the downstream segment. While on the other hand, if they chose a vertical separated structure, they didn't allow the upstream monopolies to operate into the downstream market, and so preventing sabotage. But on the other hand, they would have lost the efficiency related to the vertical integration. So economists weren't sure which one was the most efficient solution. But finally, with a directive from 1991, a vertical separated structure of the railway industry was chosen. So this directive didn't provide very strict rules for the vertical separation, and allowed also, for instance, just separation of the accounts. This is why nowadays each member state has a different structure, a different vertical separation structure of the railway industry.
So what is for Italy?
For instance, in Italy, we found a solution of unbundling by holding. So the market has been separated, but through unholding. This means that in Italy, following this directive in June of the 2000, the Ferrovie dello Stato holding monopolist was divided into an upstream infrastructure manager, Rete Ferroviaria Italiana, and a downstream railway operator, Trenitalia.
So there are two different entities, on the other hand, belonging to the same group.
Holding. This is why this solution wasn't the most efficient, because they didn't prevent correctly the sabotage of the free entry into the downstream market by the group Ferrovie dello Stato. What is more is that within the downstream market,
You mentioned the sabotage. Are you in mind some instances? Have you in
for
mind some
instance,
instances of
for instance, through the control of the essential facility, and so in the definition of the access charge. This is why in Italy there is an authority called the Autorità di Regolazione dei Trasporti, which controls the procedure of quantification of the access charge charged by Rete Ferroviaria Italiana for the minimum access package to the railway operators. But what is more is that not all of the railway passenger segment is suitable for competition in order to enhance the efficiency of the segment. Because, for instance, if we allow the railway operator to choose on which track operate, they would choose, according to economist choose decision, they would choose to operate only on the most profitable tracks, so characterized by high demand. Due to this reason, the state, in order to grant the universality of the service, has to subsidize the provision of the service on the low demanded tracks. This is the case, as seen in the slides, of the universal service for the intercity and the regional service. On the other hand, the market service is suitable for competition because, due to the high demand of this service, is characterized by high profitability. So, for the universal service, we find the competition for the market, since it is actually a natural monopoly. We find competition for the market because there is space for only one firm, and this competition for the market is not really always the case, because Italian law still allows the region to directly award the contract of service to the railway operators.
May I ask you whether the European Union is satisfied
Yeah, the European Union is satisfied, but
with
Italy,
this direct award?
no, is not satisfied with the directive award. It is pushing for a competitive awarding procedure, and since next year, Italian regions will be forced to provide the awarding of the contract of service through competitive procedures. So the first problem in the universal service is the need for strict rules obliging for competitive awarding procedure. And the second problem is related to the ownership of the rolling stock, which is the main barrier to entry into the market. And nowadays, Trenitalia owns the entirety of the rolling stock for the regional passenger transportation service. Due to this reason, Trenitalia is nowadays awarded for the entirety of the regional contract of service, or directly, or in temporary association of companies, or in joint venture, as it is the case of Lombardia with Trenord. On the other hand, as we said, the market service is suitable for competition, and Italy represents a very special case for in Europe, because since 2012, with the entrance of the private company Italo, there is a direct competition, head-on competition within the high-speed railway market between a private firm Italo and the incumbent Trenitalia. So we analyzed the competition in two sections: the intermodal competition between different means of transport, and the intermodal competition within the railway passenger transportation industry between Trenitalia and the newcomer private challenger Italo. So from an intermodal analysis, we found that the construction of the high-speed railway industry allowed a reduction of the journey duration, which increased the competitivity of railways if compared to other means of transport. We found specific evidences from the Rome-Milan route, in which the construction of the route since 2008 allowed a reduction of the duration of this service through railways, which increased the modal share previously owned by the airways, and nowadays is mainly owned by the railways. On the other hand, in the intramodal competition, so between Trenitalia and Italo, we found three main outcomes. First, that the aggressive price competition initiated by Italo forced Trenitalia, at least initially, to lower its own fares in order to respond to this aggressive price strategy, and this reduced, according to literature, the fares regarding the average price of the ticket of up to 43% since the year before the entry of Italo, and these are data from Italo itself. Moreover, from the literature analysis, it emerged that the price competition is no longer in action, so Trenitalia stopped responding to this this competitive pricing strategy initiated by Italo, and that, moreover, the price leadership, according to a study made by Beria in 2020, is held by Trenitalia itself. So this study shows the correlation, shows how a price change made by Trenitalia induces a price change of the same size in the following year made by Italo. Moreover, an analysis from Bergantino from 2017 highlights how the price positioning of Trenitalia is with higher prices. The higher prices are in a measure from 10 to 20% in the average ticket price with respect to Italo, and this data is confirmed by our database for the Rome-Milan route, in which Italo is showed with positions with prices 13% lower on average. The second outcome is the increase of revenues for the newcomer challenger Italo from the increased total demand coming from other means of transport and from the increased market share taken from Trenitalia itself. As shown in the graph, since 2015, Italo could have positive operating income, and this data is increasingly higher. Finally, the third outcome is an increase in toll revenues for the infrastructure manager, Rete Ferroviaria Italiana, because the increased demand by passenger of the high-speed transport increased the demand of trucks by the railway operators, and this resulted in an increase in revenues from access charge since 2009 of about 148 million euros. However, this didn't reduce the amount of resources required to the state in order to provide the infrastructure management service, because as seen in these data, so we can see how an increase of about 15% in the state grant was required by the infrastructure manager Rete Ferroviaria Italiana. And thank you for the attention.
In conclusion, do you have some suggestions
In
for
conclusion,
what
I have,
might be done in order to
I
improve?
can, yes, I can highlight how in the regional transportation service, we didn't reach the expected outcome because of the lack of strict rules for the competitive awarding procedure. But on the other hand, in the high-speed railway transportation market, we actually reached the expected outcome because the passengers could exploit of a price reduction of the ticket due to this price competition, and also the infrastructure manager could exploit of this increased demand with an increase of revenues.
Certainly, the competition in the high-speed routes has worked, and fares in general fell, although a price differential persists.
Yes,
This is
because
interesting.
Trenitalia still keeps charging the prices higher than Italo.
So maybe that some capacity constraint exists, which prevents
A further price
further shrinking of the differential. So, because the difference is quite substantial. It's not in general.
Can transport or should be is it advisable to transport this another site transportation?
Yes, it is. And actually, this has been done this year in Spain, in which Trenitalia is operating since this year in the high-speed railways competition with Renfe.
So different town.
Yes.
Different market sector.
For instance, in the public, in another public utility sector.
Thinking about the market and the renewable sector.
Yes, I think it is transposable, and for instance, other states are pushing for vertical separate railway industry, and because nowadays, due to the lack of strict rules on the vertical separation, we found a very fragmented situation. For instance, in France, in Switzerland, we find a fully bundled solution so that in the upstream segment and in the downstream segment, there is the same operators, so with absence of competition. While in other states like Sweden, there is only competition, while in Italy and in Germany, there is an intermediate solution with an unbundling by unholding. So Ferrovie dello Stato holds both of the segments.
So
And
they're still thinking about transportation.
yes, about transportation. Yes.
Okay, thank you. We will
Thank you
call
so
back
much.
in a few minutes. We will use this technology.
Okay. Thank you.
A dopo. Mr. Gino Episcopo, given the results of your academic career and the presentation of your thesis, this commission has approved your degree examination with a score of 103 out of 110. Therefore, by the powers conferred in us by the rector of this university, we proclaim you, in the name of the law, Dottore Magistrale in International Accounting and Management. Congratulations, congratulazioni. In bocca al lupo. Adesso andiamo a Abdul Samad. Abdul Samad. Sì, sì, così entra. Ah. Please. Good morning. Good morning. Mr. Samad. Sì, sì. Mr. Samad presents a thesis on sustainability reporting in the aviation industry.
Yes.
Okay, so please, Professor Bernabe.
Okay, thanks a lot. Abdul, we are going to discuss a thesis titled Sustainability Reporting in the Aviation Industry, but actually we are going to talk about the quality of disclosure in terms of sustainability. So I'm not going to talk too much, just start with your introduction and then we will interact sooner or later. Please.
Sure. Hi, good morning. My thesis topic is about sustainability in aviation industry. So why I have chosen this sustainability for the aviation industry, because the thing is that the aviation industry is a part of the transportation industry, which is from those industries which are harmful to the environment. So that's why this is the basic reason. So the aim of the research is to discuss the quality and level of disclosure in sustainability reports issued by the company's aviation sector and propose the best possible framework for this assessment. I have raised three research questions. The number one is how and to what extent companies are disclosing their sustainability according to IRC framework and GRI standard, and how often do they publish their reports. Question number two is about how it is possible to assess the quality disclosure about sustainability in the aviation sector. And third question arise about how can companies in the aviation sector can improve their quality disclosure practice in relation to the environmental sustainability. The literature review is about concern about environmental degradation, depletion of resources, global warming, climate change, and violation of human rights have pushed organizations to adopt more socially responsible corporate practices, which are called sustainability. The notion of sustainability, it was started from 1700s. The sustainability got started, but now there are many environmental problems, so that's why it has become the basic part for the organizations. Why sustainability reporting is important? Because the thing is that there are various issues like climate change and there is global warming, so that's why sustainability is a basic part for the organizations. So I have choose two standards, which are GRI standard and IRC framework. My thesis is based on these two frameworks. My research framework, this research is only concerned with the environmental aspects of sustainability as well as the non-financial capitals of IRC framework to address all possible sustainability 48 problems. Most of the focus of the research is on environmental side, because these days global warming and climate change type issues are getting serious day by day, and the aviation industry is from those industrial sectors which has a significant impact on the environment. On this purpose, I have developed total 66 KPIs for this research, 34 out of non-financial capitals, from IRC framework and 32 from GRI standard, from environmental series, which is 300, and developed a calculation table to check the results.
Yeah, just to add one comment about this and to make this clear for the Commission, although the concept of sustainability entails several dimensions, we are mostly focusing on the environmental side of the story. So this is why Abdul is step by step going into the details here. So just go ahead. Thanks.
So there are some KPIs. Actually, I have collected KPIs from the GRA standard, which are 32. So some of them are mentioned here, which are the organization's energy usage, outside of the organization energy usage, intensity of the energy use reduction, water as shared resource interaction, impact of water discharge management, withdrawal on old water, discharge of water, consumption of the water. And there are some I have chosen to mention in front of you. KPIs from IRC framework. I have chosen like 34 KPIs from the IRC framework, from the non-financial capitals, which are natural capital, human capital, social and relationship capital, intellectual capital. So I developed a disclosure index, which is about the quality of the disclosure of the sustainability report issued by the companies. Either they are good, satisfactory, unsatisfactory, or bad. So there is a formula which I used. It's a simple, like average formula, which I have used. I'm going to describe in next slide. So I done a data analysis. I have selected the sample of 10 aviation industries out of the study of top 100 aviation industries and collected 5 years of their reports, which are environmental reports, from 2016 to 2020 of the data from each company from their annual environmental report, which means I have collected total 50 reports. The reason to select these 10 firms is that other 90 companies are not disclosing their non-financial data annually. The thing is that I selected like 100 companies of data and I checked their annual reports. So I found out that most of the companies are not publishing their reports on annual basis. So that's why I had to select only 10 companies. As we have 66 KPIs right now, 34 from IRC framework and 32 from GRI standard, and 50 reports. In KPIs calculation table, so we have done total 33,300 observations to get final results in disclosure index. Example for the calculation table, including calculation of the disclosure index, is given below. So here is an example for the KPIs calculation table. First of all, I developed the KPIs for the IRC framework. There is a 5 columns: 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020. These are the columns for the publication of the environmental reports published by the organizations. So let's suppose there is first KPI we have from IRC framework, which is natural capital. So if the company is disclosing this data, so I'm gonna write it down as 1. If not, I'm gonna write it down as 0. The same for the GRA standard. Then if we gonna see at the total result at the last bottom, which is total result as per disclosure index. So this is the total number of results is gonna be going to the numerator, and denominator would be the 66, because we have the 66 total KPIs. So it will be a disclosure index. So I have selected total 10 companies, which are Kawasaki Industries, IHI, Raytheon, Boeing, Northrop Grumman, Bombardier, Textron, Airbus, Lockheed Martin, Leonardo. So there are some results. Actually, the results table was very big, so I just tried to summarize this table to make you understand. So there is, like, if I'm going to talk about, like, from IRC framework, there is natural capitals. There is one KPI from the natural capital, which is about amount of recycled waste. So Kawasaki has disclosed their data about this in their whole 5 years of reports. This is a summary of their 5 years publications. So in 5-year reports, they disclose this KPI. So I pointed out as 1. In IHI, they did the same. So I pointed out as 1. Raytheon, they did the same. I pointed out as 1. So if I'm going to go forward, so there is like Airbus. They did not publish their disclose this KPI in their all reports. They just disclose in 3 reports. That's why my final result from their 5 years of data is 0.6. So the same thing I did for all of the KPIs in the table. So if I'm going to see at the last bottom, so total result as per disclosure index, this is the same. I just did the sum of the all the results from IRC framework and the GRI standard and divide by the 66 because of the 66 KPIs. So the final result is 0.77, which means that all numbers of KPIs have not been disclosed by Kawasaki. They have disclosed only 77%. The same for the IHI, they have disclosed only 86%. So disclosure index is about, I have developed this disclosure index, the way if the companies are disclosing like each KPI about like from 0 to 0.25, then the result, the quality of the disclosure is bad. From 0.25 to 0.50 is unsatisfactory. From 0.5 to 0.75 is satisfactory. From 0.75 to 1 is good disclosure by the company. So if you're going to see from about the Kawasaki Heavy Industries, they perform like they disclose their quality as good because it's above than 0.75. The same for the IHI, they publish their report, they disclose their data, which is good, 0.8, which means 86%. So the same I did for all other industries. So results, as I have already mentioned, according to the above table of this disclosure index, only 4 companies, IHI, Northrop Grumman, Kawasaki, and Bombardier, successfully maintaining good disclosure quality, and 3 companies, including Raytheon, Textron, and Boeing Industries, fall into the category of the satisfactory disclosure, and 3 have unsatisfactory disclosure, which are Leonardo, Lockheed Martin, and Airbus. Good and bad cases like from the research is about like there are like 2 companies. One has the really good result of the data analysis, which is IHI, and on the other hand, we have like has really bad result of the data analysis in this research, which is Leonardo. IHI is a good case because they disclose their most of the KPIs in their annual environmental report. But Leonardo, they did not disclose most of the KPIs in their like annual publication. So this was the only reason. So most of the companies can use this research framework as their self-assessment tool to publish their annual reports. Like they can do it on quarterly basis, on like a semi-yearly basis, to check their self either they are like either they are following the requirements or not. Owing to the fact that the key performance indicators that we have created within this study framework cover all of the fundamental components that are essential for a company to become more sustainable. After analyzing the data, it became apparent that the framework developed in this research can give a clear picture of this result in both ways: vertically, by the result of the each indicator of IRC framework and GRI standard, and horizontally, by the result of all KPIs in a single year. This indicates that we can easily check the company's performance in terms of sustainability on a regular basis, so that we can easily fix each and every issue that arise. For this reason, one of the organization in the aviation was chosen outside of the sample data for this study in order to get the most accurate response possible about how business might use it as a self-assessment tool. So I picked a case study outside from my sample, which is in the aviation. I chose the same industry, it's the aviation industry, to apply this research framework as self-assessment tool for that industry. Indra is both a leading worldwide technology and consulting company and a technical partner for the core business activities of its clients all over the globe. Indra is one of the top global technology and consulting organization. It is the most successful company in the world in terms of providing proprietary solutions to specific market segments in the transportation and defense industries. So there are some results from the Indra Aviation. I have selected the 3 years of data because 5 years of data was not available because it's a new aviation industry. So from 2019 to 2021, there are some results like they public from one KPI from the natural capital, which is amount of recycled waste. They disclose this KPI in their like all of the years. If I'm going to talk about like from GRI standard, there is like we have consumption of the water. So in 2019, they did not disclose it. But in 2020 and 2021, they disclosed it in their environmental report. So this was the result at the last bottom as per the disclosure index. So they did disclose all above the KPIs as 68% in 2019 and 77% in 2020 and 83% in 2021, which means they are improving their like quality disclosure on annual basis. So the same, here we have like a disclosure index, total horizontally years result. Horizontally means like we have calculated here, the yearly wise, the total number of KPIs, the result of the total number of KPIs in as column wise. So we have the result for the 2019, which is like 68%. And 2020 is 77%, and 2021 is 83%. So vertically result is 76%, which means like if I'm going to talk about if I want to see the result like accumulated result for all of the years from 2019 to 2021, so which is about like 77%. They have disclosed their non-financial data in their environmental reports like from 2019 to 2021, which is average, is 77% in their whole tenure. So the conclusion is about the research questions. The first research question was about like how and to what extent the companies are disclosing their non-financial data and how often do they publish their reports. So after like collecting data from top 100 companies, I came to know that most of the companies are not disclosing their non-financial data on yearly basis. So I had to collect like 10 companies. So this was the first answer, that how often do they public their report. And regarding that, how and to what extent the companies are disclosing their non-financial data, as I have already discussed in my calculation table and the disclosure index, we can come to know about that. So the research framework as quality disclosure, the company can use it like as a self-assessment tool for their organizations. So it will become easier for us to analyze their self on before publishing their annual reports. So there are some limitations of this research, which is about lack of data.
Abdul, just stop here. So this is clear, and this is something that I would comment on. Two comments and one question for you. The limitations are somehow clear. You struggled in finding data since companies are not disclosing actually their information. And this is something that we need to take into consideration when we talk about disclosure in sustainability terms. Just comment a little bit about the COVID-19 situation. What do you expect to see on the quality
Actually,
of
the
disclosure?
same thing has happened if I was collecting the data from top 100 companies. So what happened, only because of the COVID-19, most of the companies were closed and they couldn't disclose their environmental report on annual basis. If I was supposed to take the data like from 2019, 18, 2019, 20 and 21, so it was not available only because of the COVID-19.
Yeah, okay. But anyhow, this is a research that actually investigates about, let's say, more about accountability than about performance. So you're using one or zero and you're checking if they're disclosing. So that's not a problem for me. Okay, fine, thanks.
Any question? Okay, good. So we will call you back in a few minutes using this sophisticated technology.
Okay, all right.
Okay?
All right.
Okay, Mr. Abdul Samad, given the results of your academic career and the presentation of your thesis, this commission has approved your degree examination with a score of 83 out of 110. Therefore, by the powers conferred in us by the rector of this university, we proclaim you, in the name of the law, Dottore Magistrale in International Accounting. Congratulations. Sì, abbiamo Corsi, sì, Eugenio Corsi. Buongiorno, si può accomodare. Benvenuto a Eugenio Corsi.
Buongiorno.
Buongiorno. Lei discute una tesi sui profili giuridici del sito web. Lascio la parola alla professoressa Gimigliano. Prego.
Il candidato ha utilizzato un approccio olistico per esaminare il sito web da un profilo giuridico. Il suo interesse è partito interesse invece di carattere diciamo aziendalistico, possiamo dire più economico, più diciamo, diverso, ecco, non giuridico. Però poi c'è stata una curiosità intellettuale, un'esigenza di completare anche il proprio background professionale che l'ha indotto a ampliare i suoi orizzonti, e questo sarà un fatto apprezzabile, di interesse. Ora, signor Corsi, se può, nei 10 minuti che avrà a sua disposizione, cercare di presentarci il suo lavoro e di evidenziare quali sono gli aspetti più critici che ha trovato questa volta sul profilo giuridico nell'approccio al sito web.
Buongiorno a tutti. Come ha anticipato la professoressa Gimigliano, il mio elaborato ho analizzato i profili giuridici del sito web e in questo ho voluto dimostrare l'esigenza di alcuni interventi legislativi volti ad aggiornare un impianto normativo che evidentemente non si è mosso di pari passo con lo sviluppo tecnologico. E come ha già detto la professoressa, adesso vorrei fare una breve premessa circa la scelta di questo argomento per la mia tesi. E da qualche anno io ho avuto modo di collaborare costantemente alla cura del sito web dell'azienda di mio fratello e a condividere con lui tutte le strategie di marketing, e da questa attività è nato il mio forte interesse per il mondo dell'e-commerce. E in questo arco temporale diciamo che da un lato ho alimentato il mio interesse per il lato aziendalistico, mentre dall'altro mi sono imbattuto nelle evidenti lacune normative e nelle controverse disposizioni che ad oggi disciplinano il settore del web. E per questa ragione quindi ho avuto il desiderio di approfondire questo settore dal punto di vista giuridico. Nel mio elaborato ho quindi analizzato sotto un punto di vista giuridico alcune delle peculiarità del sito web, fra cui il nome a dominio, l'Internet Service Provider, fino alla pubblicità online, i contratti telematici e infine i pagamenti elettronici. Adesso cercherò di spiegarvi appunto brevemente gli aspetti che a mio parere ritengo più importanti. Per ordine espositivo diciamo che all'inizio ho fatto un'analisi del quadro giuridico e normativo nel quale opera il settore web Per far questo mi sono servito delle sentenze più rilevanti della giurisprudenza assieme a contributi di autorevoli dottori e autori della dottrina e dopo questa analisi ho potuto constatare in una prima nota di rilievo che al sito web gli si debba attribuire il carattere creativo e per questo che debba essere ricondotto nell'opera dell'ingegno. E questa nota è particolarmente rilevante perché al sito web e di conseguenza il suo proprietario potrà contare su tutte quelle tutele contemplate dalla legge sul diritto d'autore, quindi quelle dalla richiesta del risarcimento del danno fino alla sospensione dell'indebito sfruttamento. Di seguito, come è noto, il legislatore ha inserito a tutti gli effetti, tra i segni distintivi contemplati dal codice della proprietà industriale, il nome a dominio e questo è un elemento fondamentale, come sappiamo, del sito web. E da questa nota sono parse le prime mie perplessità, perché in effetti il legislatore, anche in considerazione delle caratteristiche peculiari dei nomi a dominio, avrebbe potuto inserire una disciplina più specifica. Infatti, se pensiamo ai rimedi riconosciuti ai segni distintivi, questi mal si conciliano col sistema tecnologico dei nomi a dominio. Si pensi per esempio all'estensione della tutela tradizionale nei casi di azione cautelare. Infatti, il fatto che ci può essere un ordine del giudice a non utilizzare un nome a dominio nei confronti di terzi, questo non rappresenta la soluzione migliore al problema se questo divieto non è accompagnato a un sistema di monitoraggio del nome a dominio, perché l'ipotetico usurpatore potrebbe comunque aggirare l'ordine e far circolare sul web il nome a dominio colpito dall'azione inibitoria. E quindi per questo, diciamo, è utile, si rende necessario far sì che si cerchi un mezzo più idoneo e più efficace in modo da non perdere la validità del mezzo dell'azione cautelare. E per quanto riguarda i contratti online, l'argomento che più ha suscitato il mio interesse riguarda quello delle pratiche commerciali scorrette all'interno del commercio elettronico. E è rilevante che di recente l'autorità garante della concorrenza e del mercato ha adottato dei provvedimenti nei confronti di siti di e-commerce che non avevano predisposto le condizioni d'acquisto in modo chiaro. In buona sostanza, l'autorità garante ha asserito che tutti quei siti che non predispongono criteri per il procedimento di acquisto realizzano una pratica commerciale scorretta. E a questo punto ci viene in riferimento l'articolo 49 del codice del consumo che indica il contenuto delle informazioni precontrattuali che infatti nei siti di e-commerce corrisponde quasi sempre alle condizioni di vendita e tale norma indica anche che queste informazioni devono essere chiare e comprensibili. Tuttavia all'interno del mondo web e per il suo proprio caratteristico linguaggio è difficile capire se queste informazioni sono chiare e comprensibili anche come in qualità di consumatore che deve fare un acquisto online. Quindi di conseguenza è auspicabile cercare di introdurre dei paletti normativi in modo che si consenta di individuare meglio quali sono i criteri per stabilire la chiarezza e la comprensibilità di queste informazioni, anche appunto in relazione al contesto web, per limitare le violazioni all'interno dell'e-commerce e tutelare ancora di più i consumatori. Adesso vorrei parlare di un argomento che più ha suscitato il mio interesse all'interno dell'intero elaborato, ovvero quelle delle evidenti problematiche connesse ai rischi di pagamento e ai meccanismi truffaldini in cui ci si può ritrovare che vengono attuati mediante truffe informatiche. In questo contesto, la normativa vigente prevede un sistema di oneri e responsabilità sia nei confronti del prestatore di servizi che degli utilizzatori. E per i primi, il comma 1 articolo 10 del decreto legislativo 11/2010 ci dice che qualora l'utente neghi di aver autorizzato un'operazione di pagamento, sarà onere del prestatore di servizi verificare che questa operazione è stata correttamente autenticata, registrata o che non abbia subito ulteriori problematiche. E tale prova però, segue il secondo comma, non è da sola sufficiente a prevedere che l'operazione sia stata autenticata dal cliente, ma il prestatore di servizi deve assieme provare la frode o il dolo o la colpa grave in capo all'utente. In buona sostanza significa che in caso di mancato assolvimento dell'onere probatorio del prestatore di servizi, quest'ultimo deve riaccreditare immediatamente sul conto corrente del cliente l'importo sottratto della frode. E diciamo che le responsabilità dell'utente quindi sono circoscritte a comportamenti fraudolenti o al suo doloso o gravemente colposo inadempimento degli obblighi normativi previsti. Ecco, dopo questo sintetico quadro giuridico, dalla mia analisi è scaturito che tra le truffe informatiche più tradizionali e consolidate annoveriamo quella del phishing. Il phishing è quel meccanismo in cui l'utente comunica le proprie credenziali di accesso al di fuori del circuito operativo dell'intermediario, abboccando a truffe predisposte con un linguaggio maccheronico o comunque sia con evidenti errori nel lessico, e diciamo un utente di media diligenza in grado da solo di percepire il pericolo e di autotutelarsi. In questo contesto è molto interessante capire qual è l'approccio interpretativo del principale organo stragiudiziale a cui si fa riferimento per queste fattispecie, ossia l'arbitro bancario o finanziario. E quest'organo, diciamo, in queste fattispecie tende a condividere le tesi addotte dal prestatore di servizi secondo cui il cliente è responsabile di una colpevole credulità perché è al di sotto degli standard minimi richiesti dal navigante medio. E tuttavia queste forme tradizionali di truffa informatica è stata affiancata ben presto da delle tecnologie più sofisticate, mi sto riferendo in questo caso al cosiddetto man in the browser, che alla luce delle decisioni dell'arbitro bancario e finanziario viene descritto come un software insidioso che, a differenza del phishing, si appropria indebitamente delle credenziali di accesso dell'utente con meccanismi più subdoli in modo da provare anche la buona fede del più attento fruitore del servizio. E in queste fattispecie è proprio la prova della condotta a carico del prestatore di servizi a destare le maggiori perplessità, perché questa può dirsi assolta solo in presenza o di autorizzazioni di operazioni anomale da parte del cliente o per comunicazioni dell'intermediario al cliente ignorate, oppure in presenza di inescusabili violazioni dei doveri di custodia delle credenziali di sicurezza. Ecco, in questo meccanismo quindi diciamo che il sistema impone al prestatore di servizi una specie di probazio diabolica, ed è proprio la difficoltà di provare la colpa del cliente in cui ritroviamo le maggiori problematiche. Infatti nella pratica un intermediario, che può essere per esempio una banca, per importi diciamo monetari piccoli non ha la convenienza economica di mettere in gioco tutte le strategie per provare la colpa grave del cliente. Conseguentemente il cliente apparentemente raggirato, nel caso in cui riesca a girare la sua abile natura di hacker, avrebbe dalla sua parte anche uno speciale favore, regime di favore probatorio a suo favore. E quindi diciamo questo regime probatorio mal si concilia in simili fattispecie. E anche sotto questo aspetto quindi è stato sottolineato come c'è bisogno di alcuni interventi legislativi volti ad aggiornare un quadro normativo che evidentemente non si è mosso di pari passo con il contesto tecnologico. E in conclusione, quindi, come detto in premessa, c'è bisogno di un riaggiornamento del contenuto che sia al passo con l'incessante e repentino sviluppo tecnologico e soprattutto che sia specificamente disciplinato, disposto a disciplinare il settore in cui opera il sito web.
No, io volevo chiedere al signor Corsi se, focalizzando, appunto, c'è stato un approccio trasversale rispetto dove il centro dell'analisi è stato il sito web, in realtà l'analisi si è estesa al commercio elettronico, poi in fondo, prendendo come punto focale di partenza la tutela quindi del sito web. Rispetto al problema delle pratiche commerciali scorrette, qual è l'aspetto che lui ha trovato, diciamo, degno di interesse, o secondo lui, proprio coniugando la pratica con l'inquadramento giuridico, l'esperienza professionale con l'inquadramento giuridico, di maggiore interesse, quindi più difficile da gestire?
Riguardo alle pratiche commerciali scorrette?
Se si è fatto, oppure rispetto ad un altro profilo, perché lei si è concentrato giustamente sui pagamenti online e questo noi l'abbiamo apprezzato, ma rispetto agli altri aspetti c'è qualche elemento che la sua esperienza, la sua esperienza e il suo studio le consentono di segnalare?
Ecco, diciamo che rispetto alle pratiche commerciali scorrette, guardo soprattutto nell'e-commerce, spesso all'interno dei siti queste informazioni non sono chiare e comprensibili come la norma dice di fare, e quindi diciamo c'è una simmetria tra queste informazioni e il consumatore finale che deve acquistare, fare un acquisto online. E quindi diciamo, a mio parere, la norma potrebbe prevedere delle indicazioni più specifiche al contesto digitale, ovvero chiarire i concetti di chiarezza e comprensibilità collegati al contesto digitale.
Quindi al fatto che il contesto digitale non ha una territorializzazione in questo senso rispetto ad altro, cioè non ha dei Va bene, io non ho altre domande.
Non mi pare ci siano altre domande, allora si può accomodare, la richiamiamo tra poco, sentirà squillare questo campanello. aspettiamo anche il pubblico. Signor Eugenio Corsi, la Commissione, visti i risultati della carriera accademica svolta e valutata la tesi da lei presentata, ha approvato il suo esame di laurea con la votazione di 106 centodecimi. Pertanto, per i poteri conferitici dal magnifico Rettore, la proclamiamo in nome della legge dottore magistrale in Management e Governance. Complimenti. E in bocca al lupo. E abbiamo last but not least il nostro il signore qua c'è vabbè. Moharir. Moharir. Ciao Ciro, grazie. Ci chiami tu Mohair? Mohair si chiama. Advait Mohair. Buongiorno. Welcome, Mr. Mohahir. Hello. Mr. Mohahir.
Yeah. Should I open?
Yeah. Okay. We present the thesis with Professor Kudu, Measurement Issues in India's GDP, a Synthetic Control Approach.
Sorry, how can I make it full screen? It's in Italian.
Control L. Okay. So 2 words before we begin. Apparently there is a debate in India about how the GDP is going, or whether the numbers of the GDP are actually catching. Right? And some people have said maybe what we are seeing in the GDP is not really what is going on. So probably there is some overestimation of the numbers that we are seeing. And applied work pretty much heads towards that direction to provide some evidence, causal impact evidence about these issues, these facts. I'm not going to take more time. The floor is yours, so please.
Can I start?
You should start.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. My topic is measurement issues in India's GDP, a synthetic control approach. As mentioned by Professor Kudu, the thesis is motivated by the Indian GDP debate. A few years back, India's statistical agency changed the base year used to measure real GDP from the year 2004 to 2011, which spawned a number of critiques. Firstly, the change in methodology used to measure the manufacturing sector output led several experts to claim that the gross value added of the private corporate sector especially has been artificially inflated or blown up. Secondly, certain correlates which move together with the GDP before 2011, like imports, electricity, and credit growth, started moving in the opposite direction after the release of the new series. Several other issues like upward biased revisions, dubious choice of deflators, and underrepresentation of the unorganized sector output also started cropping up when the new series was released. Now, typically, the literature says that measurement error can be estimated by reconciling GDP estimates from the income side and the expenditure side. However, there's no income side data available for India, which makes such an exercise very difficult. Instead, I construct a counterfactual trajectory of real GDP, and this trajectory shows how India's GDP would have evolved had the methodology for estimation or this base year change not happened in the year 2011. This is done by generating an optimally constructed weighted average of countries which are similar to India in every other respect, but did not have such an intervention in 2011. To do this, I use two methods, namely the synthetic control method, which I call SCM henceforth, and the generalized synthetic control method, which I call GSCM. Moving on to the method section. For the SCM, suppose there are J+1 countries and India is the first country, also called the treated unit, and the rest of the countries which contribute to the synthetic control are called as the donor pool. We potentially observe two measures of GDP for India, one with the intervention, which is Y1TI, and one without the intervention, which is Y1TN. Y1TI is observed and Y1TN is not observed. So the task of this exercise is really to estimate Y1TN. This is done using the formula shown here, which says that the counterfactual is simply the weighted average of the donor country's GDP. This is done using an optimal vector of weights, and the weights are chosen so that synthetic India represents India's GDP predictors before the treatment. So the weights here minimize the distance between the predictors of India's GDP before the treatment, which is X1, and the predictors of the donor country's GDP before the treatment, which is X0. The GSCM is more generalized in the sense that it allows for interactive fixed effects. The counterfactual here is a function of a vector of covariates, the estimated parameter values for those covariates, common factors and factor loadings. Specifically, the term lambda1 hat prime ft hat shows the interaction between the common factors and factor loadings, and hence the name interactive fixed effects. And the optimal number of factors are chosen via a cross-validation scheme. Both the methods give us the average treatment effect for India, which is simply the difference between the observed GDP and the estimated counterfactual. In this case, it is also our estimate for whether, to the extent of whether GDP is overestimated or underestimated. The setup is as follows. India is the treated unit. The treatment happens in the year 2011. The time period is 1991 to 2019, and the donor units chosen here are 19 emerging market economies as defined by IMF, because India is also an emerging market economy, but the other countries. Yes. I run 4 specifications, the SCM with predictors, the GSCM without any covariates, the matching happens only on GDP, the GSCM with economic covariates only, and GSCM with a broader set of covariates where I include some education covariates as well. The dependent variable is log real GDP in 2011 local currency units. The covariates are taken from the literature on synthetic control and GDP measurement. I include trade and investment as a share of GDP, as well as primary and secondary gross school enrollment. All the variables are taken from the World Development Indicators web database, which is maintained by the World Bank, and all the models are estimated using the R programming language using the packages mentioned here. Finally, we can look at the results. Figure 1 shows the log GDP trend for actual and synthetic India over the given time period. As we can see, synthetic India trend tracks the actual India GDP trend very closely till the year 2011, after which a gap starts to open up. And the synthetic India line is below the actual India line, indicating that there is some overestimation. A similar trend is observed for the GSCM model. Just the magnitude of the gap is slightly larger here. However, with the inclusion of covariates, the gap falls significantly. The gap becomes much narrower. And with the inclusion of economic and education covariates, the gap almost disappears, indicating that the GSCM results especially may not be robust to the inclusion of covariates. Table 1 shows the same results shown in the last 4 slides, but as difference between the growth rates, as this allows us to easily understand overestimation or underestimation in terms of growth. The outliers are colored in purple and red respectively. However, the main results of interest are in the last column, which shows the average overestimation over the periods 2012 to 2019. Based on which specification you use, there either is no overestimation at all, which is seen in 4th column, or there is an overestimation to the extent of almost 3% per annum, which is seen in the 2nd column. Now, how do we interpret these results? Abadi and co-authors suggest the mean square prediction error ratios as a test statistic. What the MSP shows is how well the synthetic India line tracks the actual India line. It measures the prediction error between the two. If the treatment had a significant effect on the outcome variable of interest, then the prediction error is very large after the treatment and very small before the treatment, which makes the overall ratio largest for the treated unit. And as we can see here, the pre to post period MSP ratio is highest for India, followed by other countries, indicating that the treatment effect was significant. We can also measure Fisher's exact p-values. The p-values here represent the probability of getting the MSP ratio of a similar magnitude or the same magnitude of India had this treatment been randomly assigned to some other donor country. India's rank is first with the lowest p-value, and the value is at 5.3%, indicating that the MSP ratios are significant at the 10% significance level. The inference for GSCM is done using a parametric bootstrap approach, which allows us to calculate exact standard errors and corresponding p-values. As we can see, none of the results are statistically significant, indicating that there may be no overestimation using the GSCM at least. There are two possible reasons for this. One is that the number of donor countries are small. The author of the paper who mentioned the GSCM has said that if there are less than 40 countries, then the results are prone to bias. Also, a lot of data is missing for the predictors, especially for the control units, which leads to a significantly reduced sample size. I perform a couple of robustness checks as well. The first is backdating, where the treatment is assigned a few years before the actual treatment year. In this case, I choose the year 2005. The synthetic and actual India trends move together till the year 2011, which is a good sign. However, they continue to move together even after 2011, and a gap begins opening up only after the year 2015, which indicates that these results are only partially robust. For the GSCM, however, we can see that the gap between the two lines opens up much closer to the actual year of treatment, indicating that they are much more robust compared to the SCM results. I also estimate the GSCM model with quarterly data instead of annual data to increase the number of observation and reduce the potential for bias. We see a very similar trend to the results obtained with yearly data, indicating that the results for GSCM are robust. In conclusion, in this study, I construct a counterfactual GDP estimates using the SCM and GSCM and find average overestimation for a range of values ranging between minus 0.5%, which is almost none at all, to 3% per annum, depending on the identification strategy. What we have is that the SCM results are significant at 10%, but they are not robust since they are very sensitive to specification and not robust to backdating as well. The GSCM results, on the other hand, are robust but statistically insignificant. Hence, using this method, we cannot conclusively establish that India's GDP is overestimated. However, it is very important to note that inference and test statistics for the synthetic control method and its derivatives is very much developing and a work in progress, as these authors have mentioned. Hence, there are multiple optimistic future avenues for research, including using advances in causal panel data modeling like matrix completion. This method allows us to deal with the problem of missing values and fill them using an optimal technique. We can also use other estimators like the synthetic difference in difference, which combines the SCM and the difference in differences with best properties of both. Thank you very much for your time and attention.
Thank you. Be any question?
So I have a comment and elaboration. Basically, your results are kind of controversial. That you find evidence of overestimation, and then according to the method that you use, also specification, that these evidence kind of evaporates, right? So what is your impression about that? Is it possible that in fact this overestimation exists, or is it just a feature of the methodology that you are using?
One thing that I was considering is the choice of predictors. Here I have chosen gross primary and secondary school enrollment, for example. However, gross enrollment in contemporary time does not really affect GDP. It affects GDP with a lag, or it really affects GDP in the future. So one thing that I would consider is using mean years of schooling for working age population as a predictor instead. I think it has more to do with the choice of covariates rather than the validity of the question itself.
So it's fundamental covariance.
Yes. Yes, especially for the synthetic control method, because for the GSCM, we can also have matching without the covariates. But it is especially very, very important to have the correct or a reasonable set of covariates for the SCM.
I have a very general question. Why the treatment? Why this change in GDP calculation in India? In 2011,
Yes.
if I have understood
Yes.
correctly, was this change? Why?
So what had happened was when we measure growth rates using the old base year and the new base year, the gap in the growth rates is very high. For example, manufacturing sector GVA grew at almost 2.9% in the year 2013 using the new data, whereas using the old data, it is almost showing 6 to 7% increase. So when typically base year changes are done, it is to update information used to calculate real GDP. And over the trend should be smooth. There should not be such big jumps. So it is really questioning the methodology used by the statistical agency, as there are such significant jumps in the growth rate. That is why this particular treatment was used. And also because there was no counterfactual readily available, so I decided to try and construct it using this method.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. This methodological change, yes, because in the news and also a lot of IMF reports are constantly talking about India and China being, the fastest growing economies over the last 20 years. They've been growing at 7%. If there is any validity to this, or with further fine tuning, of course I will have to back it up, and there are several other studies also coming. India's growth story over the last decade will be a very different one if something like this is true, because you have results which say that there is no overestimation at all, but you also have something as big as 2.6 to 3% per annum, which is huge. Because if India is not growing at 7% but 4%, then it's a very different story. We are not catching up as fast as we should. Yes. Yes.
They also compare GDP under the
Yes.
methodology.
Yeah.
And they discovered a difference, a gap. Or did they have some technological term, how to change here?
Yes. Yeah. So the first economist who I've cited, R. Nagaraj, he actually was part of the statistical commission at one point. He left before the figures were published, but he had access to the preliminary report and the final report, and he found that there were huge discrepancies in the two numbers. And his main concern is actually regarding the manufacturing sector. Earlier, a different database was used to measure the gross value added of the manufacturing sector, and then this was changed with artificial inflate. Like some of the numbers were artificially inflated to include companies which had not even filed their returns, for instance. And the other one was India's chief economic advisor, actually, till a few years back. And his concerns are related to comparing the two series, which you mentioned, using the old and new base year. So yeah, these are the two main concerns. Yes, yes, because because to account for the lack of data, they are assuming that all the firms have the same paid up capital ratio. That is the assumption that they make. And they also use a number of alternative indicators. Like in India, there is an annual survey of industries which takes place every year. It's a proper sample survey conducted. The GVA numbers reported by them are half those, the one done by the National Account Statistics, for example.
Okay, so I think we can stop here. We will call you back in a few minutes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Switch the microphone on.
Mr. Advaid Mohair, given the results of your academic career and the presentation of your thesis, this commission has approved your degree examination with a score of 110 cum laude out of 110. Therefore, by the powers conferred in us by the rector of this university, we proclaim you, in the name of law, Dottore Magistrale in Economics. Congratulations.
You are allowed to leave.
Yeah, okay.